Palmquist is going to sit in for committee member Patrick Delaney. Therefore, all committee members are present. We'll go around the room and do introductions.
Kyle Kearns, Director of Community Development for the city.
Sue Schill, City Attorney.
Steve Shepro, attorney, or assessor for the city.
Dean Veneman, committee member, council president.
Justin Pluis, District 3.
Jeff Penscover, Alderman, District 4.
Jay Catnaugh, Chair, Alderman, District 5.
Dennis Pollock, 6th Ward Alderman.
Madeline Palmquist, District 8, stand-in.
Thank you. Item 2, consider for approval a temporary retail Class B fermented malt beverage and temporary retail Class B wine license for St. Lawrence Catholic Church, 550 10th Avenue North for a parish picnic event to be held Sunday, August 11th, 2024, from 11:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Committee?
Everything in order, Jennifer?
Everything is in order. I recommend approval.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Veneman, seconded by Palmquist. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Item 3, consider for approval of taxi cab license renewal application from Randy Wyas for Gotta Go Taxi LLC. Jennifer?
Everything is in order with this as well. I recommend approval.
Motion to approve with request for side comment.
Go ahead and make your comment.
Do we ever get, so I've seen a lot of these and they're usually, for lack of better terms, rubber stamped approved. Are there any that come in that don't get to us or aren't approved?
They go to the police department for a background check first, and they also go to the court office to make sure they don't owe fines to the city. If either of those things is not in order, then we will deny it to allow the person to, well, I shouldn't say deny it, but we allow the person to either pay the fine or correct whatever is missing. And then then it does come to council anyway, and you can make the determination whether to deny it or approve it. If you do deny it at committee level, when it goes to council, they have the right to appeal that decision. Does that make sense?
Yep. So if somebody decides that they don't want to pay their fine and then has an argument against that, they would likely reach out to their alderperson to discuss that in a different way? Or is there any reason why we aren't discussing alternatives to approving these? Or why don't we ever see the ones that are declined?
I have not had one declined yet.
Okay.
So, because they've all either passed the court or they passed. But if I did have one to deny, I would still bring it. And then you guys could either approve or deny. And then again, the applicant would have the right to appeal it to council.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Palmquist, second by Veneman. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes 3-0. Item 4, discussion regarding the tax assessments, the tax levy, and the city budget. So this will happen as a whole. I thought it was important after the assessments went out that we clear the air and talk as a council about what the assessments mean, because there were some calls from some residents and some confusion, and I think after the assessments went out, we were able to address some of those with the FAQs and the article that went out in the Tribune. So first we'll talk about that, and then we'll have Steve talk about that, and then we'll go to Tim and have him speak to, what this means for the levy and the city budget. So Steve, if you want to kick us off. Is your mic
Mic.
on?
It was.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And basically what happened is typically the city runs about 30% increase on a reval because we usually see 2 to 3% increases per year. And for the last 5 years, we've seen about 10 to 12% increases in property values across the board. The other area that we had to correct is commercial was sitting at around 88, 89%. Residential would have been at 63 if we didn't do the reval this year. Percent, and that's something you don't want to have where it gets more than 10% apart. And now with the reval, we're sitting at right around 94, 95% right now. We didn't make it up to 100%. And partly because this year the Department of Revenue gave us another bump already. I'm not sure. The sales are showing it. Most of the stuff that I have valued out there, say at 150, I see sales for 160 already, 170. It's happening. It's still going up. It's just the bidding war part of it is gone. Not as much. There is houses depending on demand on it. It's still low inventory out there. Interest rate about 8%. I would have thought it would have slowed down, but it really hasn't. I think the sales are still very strong. It's just, this city has not seen that since the time I've been here, which is over about 30 years. I did revals here with Bowmeyer Appraisal for about 10 years, and then I got hired as the city assessor at that point. So I've done a number of revals here. And it's the same people that have come in. We probably have seen anywhere between 50 and 100 people, either phone calls or going out to their properties. So on Thursday, it started last week, the phone calls and stuff. And then Beth, who works in our office with me, basically took the calls and then scheduled appointments. We went out to the properties, visited the properties. Most people are, pretty decent. It's all about taxes. It's not about the value of the home. They don't care about the value of the home, it seems like. And that's why I said it's very difficult on this one. Years ago, we could always say if you went up 30%, that was the average. The tax rate would go down probably 30%, and everybody stays about the same. The ones that went up in taxes went up a little bit more. They would see an increase in taxes where some people went lower, and they might see a decrease. That's how it works statewide. This one's a little different because our average increase is 60 to 80% on residential. And on commercial, it's about 10 to 15% increase, which is, I still think it's good in this market. Office buildings are probably the biggest thing that's dragging it right now, more than anything. It's just the sales on them are not very high in comparison, where other parts of the sales, apartments, of course, have been very high, the sales on that. So and we have a number of sales. We get about 700 and some sales a year in the city. Out of that, probably about half are arm's length transaction, good sales that we can use. And that's what we do throughout the year. We basically review them 350 sales with the property owner at their house so we can use them properties for modeling. And then we do, of course, building permits with that, so we visit the properties for that. And then on top of that is any requested reviews from the property owner. And I wish you guys could come with me because the idea of the taxes is always there, but it's no different this time than any other time. It's just a matter of the increase is just larger, But when you talk about value, they don't deny that the value seems to be high. And stuff. It's more about what's going to happen to my taxes. So that's one part of it that I think, I wish, doing it differently, could I've, was the taxes. The problem is most of the people I've talked to, they don't even know there was a back size to the notice. Most of them read that front part, and that's as far as it got, is the value. And I don't blame them, because houses went from 110 to 195 or something on their house. That's a huge increase. Typically, we saw 110 to maybe 140 or something like that. And even the higher ends, now we have sales up into 4, 5, 600,000. The city never really seen much of that, And that was always a tough spot to deal with here, is if you had a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 house, we have no comps to look at, But we do now. We have quite a bit of comps from all stages, all areas of the city. So the numbers we came up, we went up with about $435 million in new value in the city on this reval. And the old value was $974 million. Now we're at $1.4 billion in the city. So that's a huge increase, and I think it's great for the city. I'm hoping that it stays, in this market, that it doesn't slide back at all. But that's going to be determined in the years to come here. So, but I think it's right now it looks pretty good, and which I think with the mill being pretty much closed, and interest rate at 8%. I wouldn't expect it this in the city. So this is quite unusual. You talk to any realtor, they feel the same way. It's pretty, I talk to them all the time, and, you know, the sales are still up there. You know, that's the thing. If you have a $150,000 house, you might not get into a bidding war with them, but you are getting, you know, higher values. So all the TIFs, all that work, basically, Tim will have all these numbers. He gets all our numbers. But that will not be cited until we're done. August 22nd is the board of review. Right now, we have nobody signed up for it to discuss their assessment. We've been dealing with, tomorrow's the last day of the open book series, but it's still available. We're still available right up until that date. So if anybody wants to discuss their value, we either out at the house or here, we can do it, either one. And it's really quieted down. Monday was a little bit busy the first thing in the morning. Of course, that's what you usually expect, but by today, it really, we probably had 5 all afternoon, 5 people. So there's some I have to go out and review yet. Some homes that still, they have questions. A lot of them, it's damage to their foundations and things that, you know, if we didn't have notes on it already and adjustments on it, a few little land ones, but nothing really major yet. You know, I probably have, I don't know, 5 to 7 commercial properties that need to be reviewed. A couple of them are apartment buildings. Usually them are pretty easy to do because we do that on an income basis. Other words, I could answer any questions you want, but I don't know what else I can tell you besides.
Can you speak to doing your job as the assessor, what the state statute looks for you to be within 10% of market value?
Correct.
Could you speak to that a little bit? Because I think that's where people see a jump from tax assessment to tax assessment, you know, and that missing piece is, and they think it may be the city, but really a lot of it's set by state statute if you.
And that's what we try to get out there on the back of the letter and everything else. It all talks about the Department of Revenue is the one that regulates this. It's not the city. It's not because of a new jail. It's not because of anything else. It's amazing what people. New mayor. New mayor, yeah, we got that. Mayor needs new money, you know, so. But it's amazing, but it's very understandable. When you go up this much, people are upset. You know, this is their home, and we understand that, but it's hard because I think a lot of them hear about it in the news. And as far as what the guidelines are, yes, once we go above 10% or below 10% values, meaning our assessed values and what they're selling for would be 100% if they're equal. So once them sales start to grow and increase, and our assessment stays there for the next couple of years, we start to fall behind. And then once we get below 90%, the clerk will get a letter stating that the city needs to do a reval in the next 5 years. But that's why we did change it here a few years back to do them every 5 years, so we never got into position. So we were fine. We could have done it last year if we wanted to, but we were kind of hoping that the market would kind of even out before we had to do this, so we were not putting, you know, exaggerated numbers on there, and we haven't because they're still growing. And so the other thing is I talk about the 10% between classes. That's the one that's really tough because your commercial's sitting at 88 and the residential would be at 60-something. That's not, you know, then the state's got to equalize all that and fix that. We try to keep that as close together. It's just the problem is residential's growing at a faster rate, their values, than what commercial is. So it's going to happen. This is typical across the state. You may have some areas that the commercial does pretty well in, but most of them, this is what you're seeing is residential is just outgrowing basically the commercial part of it. So that basically saying more of the weight is being put on residential. But as far as any other guidelines or procedures by the state, like I said, it is mandated by the state. So it's not, the city doesn't come to me and say we have to do one. Basically, the state comes to the city and said it has to be done. So it's not something that comes from here. I think, I don't know, as far as I know right now, unless you have another question, I don't know if I answered it, so.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Shepro? Mayor?
I'd just like a clarification for the record. Does the mayor have anything to do with this?
Not at all. Actually, this started long before you came on even, so.
Thank you.
No, we do try to make sure that they understand, because I think it's very important. It is the Department of Revenue, and we try to do that. Everybody I talk to, I let them know that's the Department of Revenue. It's not the city, you know? And, you know, it's amazing what you hear, but it's the same in every city. It doesn't really matter, you know? It's the same questions, and, you know, it's hard. I mean, especially if you're retired or not, but if you're on a fixed income and you see this notice come in, you think your taxes are gonna double. Like I said, the biggest problem I have is years ago, we were able to always estimate what the tax rate may be. I tried to get out of that because then I was accused of telling the wrong idea as far as I thought it might only go up a little bit and it went up a little bit more, you know. So I try to explain that if you're right in that average, you should be pretty good. You might see 100 or 200. And we've seen this in other communities that we have done revals in, that, you know, if you're right in that average, you might see 100 or 200 or 300 go up. But we've had houses that went up 120%. So I definitely are going to tell them their taxes are going to change in proportion, so.
Any other questions for Mr. Shepro?
And if I can mention, we're not done yet, so, but if you do get any calls or emails, please send them on to us. It's the best thing we can do. I know some of the council members I know, I think a lot of them have changed since before, but we used to do like an orientation with new council members and stuff and kind of explain that when we go through. We do handouts for that if you need it or whatever, but it just, we prefer, instead of you put me in a position where I can't maybe back what you're saying to a constituent, I really like it if you just turn them over to us. We will take care of the person and talk to them if I make a change or not, but then we will forward that on to the council member that they can know that it was taken care of and stuff like that. So right now, I don't think I've had any. I know I've met a couple people here from the council upstairs, but, so if you do have any calls, please just pass on. It's the easiest way to do. I think it's, you know, the best you can do. You know, some of you might be able to answer all the questions, that's fine, but I worry about stuff that I can't back. If you tell me they're gonna, oh yeah, that's too high, you're gonna have to lower it. I'm not gonna do that if I don't think it's fair, you know,
Right.
so.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I invited you down today, is to educate the council, the public, on what this process takes, what's required, what's out of your control, the city's control, and just clear up with what went out on the assessments and the questions and the calls that, I can't speak for everyone, that I received, and us be able to bring this here and speak about it and go over it without saying the wrong thing on a phone call with a resident, outside of probably have them talk to you, and we'll go from there. So, any other questions for Mr. Shepro? Go ahead.
The easiest way to contact you is 715-421-8230.
That's our office number, correct? Yep,
Great, thank you.
thank you. Or our email too, he can do either one. I think it's assessor office. Yeah, it's our email, so. I don't know.
Okay, now we'll move to the next part. So let's talk about what it means for their tax bill. So we know assessments have went up, why they've went up. Let's talk about what they might see on their taxes and how that's going to affect the city and its budget.
Sure. First I'd like to lead off by saying, a revaluation does not generate new tax revenue. Rather, it's a redistribution of those taxes. As we've discussed over the many budgets, that the city is subject to levy limits. So our levy can only go up based on certain factors. And one of the things is that the levy can only go up for like new value based on our net new construction. So late last week, the state released their net new construction numbers, and based on that, the net new construction in the city of Wisconsin Rapids was 0.39%, which calculates to that for new value, new construction, our levy can only go up a maximum of $47,329 for new value. Then obviously, there are other adjustments that you can make outside of that. The only adjustment that we make in our levy limit calculation is the amount of, you're allowed an adjustment for your debt service. So, right now, our debt service the difference between last year's debt service adjustment and this year is an increase of $75,000. So, that's a total between those two numbers of 121,994. Now, if you remember, or as discussion, that the state of Wisconsin exempted personal property starting next year. So the tax bills that will go out in December, payable next year, there will be no personal property taxes. So that value is reduced from our overall tax base. However, the state of Wisconsin will make an aid payment to the city to kind of make up for that lost revenue from that exempted personal property. That amount then will, similar to the treatment for exempted computers, which they did a number of years ago, that will be subtracted from our levy. So they're not going to allow the city to, keep that money that was in that levy, limit, or in the levy last year, and keep that in there, and then also receive an aid payment. So that aid, when that amount's determined, will then be subtracted off our levy. So, I do believe August 15th is when they're going to release the aid payments for that we'll receive next year for that. So those are the kind of the factors that go into our levy. So just because the values are going up due to the revaluation does not generate new tax revenue. So just kind of wanted to kind of address that.
Thank you. Thank you both. So, as what Mr. DeSorsi said, the city budget will not increase. We will not have additional money because of the assessment. It's changing in distribution and weight. So, for those out there who have called or are watching this meeting, and I think those of us in this room, was the hope today to bring you guys here and help educate everyone on the topic. But is there any questions for Tim or Steve? Okay, well, thank you both. We'll dispose of this item and move on to item 5, which is review and consider an application for a rail crossing elimination grant. And I don't see Joe Eichstead, so who am I going to on
Joe's
this?
not here, so I'll take it.
Okay.
All right. We have review and consider an application for a rail crossing elimination grant. Background information, this rail crossing elimination grant, RCE grant, is a federal grant with a 20% local match. The project that is being considered is the overpass of West Grand Avenue, alternate 5-1 from Wisconsin Rapids feasibility study in 2023, valued at nearly $40 million. This grant is a nationwide grant in the city of Eau Claire. Aries and Associates was successful with their grant application in 2022. They were one of only 30 awarded projects in the nation. Aries has reviewed the project and stated your project has all the hallmarks identified by the RCE funding program, including several Justice 40 census tracts and an opportunity zone. The grant is due September 23rd, 2024. Aries approved a proposal for $33,000. See attached. Options available. This is being presented for consideration to pursue. However, there are no obligations to do so. Staff recommendation. This is being presented as a possible opportunity. There are many pros and cons to consider with this alternative. Also, this is an expensive project, even for the city, to meet the local match. However, it does provide the connectivity during blockage events and greatly increases safety for pedestrians, vehicles, and protective services. It should be noted that the track relocation alternatives listed in the feasibility report would rank a little higher than this grade separation. However, the track relocation would not be feasible at this time. Action you are requesting the committee to take: consider approving the proposal with Aries and Associates to write the grant application for the railroad crossing elimination grant, and this will be financed through the Public Works Construction Fund reserves. The only thing I would add to this is that if with you guys kind of wanting me to, I would continue to pursue talking to the people necessary to find more about the relocation, find out more about the relocation. But at the same time, we want to submit this grant, if you guys so choose, to make sure that we can get on this, because nothing's guaranteed in the future. But if we do have the relocation information set up at the same time, there's a possibility that maybe we could switch from one to the other and solve all of our relocation issues on the street crossings on the west side. Not necessarily all of them, but with this one main track coming through. There's a lot of moving irons in that fire, though, so it's a little bit trickier. Thank you.
Did they mention why the relocation was not feasible at this time?
So I believe that Aries, the company that's writing it, is just more confident that they're looking for this grade separation project is more straightforward. They've seen more of those be brought to the grant company and be awarded the grant funding. But again, if we put our, ducks in a row, I kind of feel encouraged that we can maybe get it switched over. But again, there's a lot of things that have to happen to make that happen, and I think they want the easier one. And this is easier too because it's Wisconsin Rapids only. It's not dealing with neighboring communities, or obviously CN Railroad would still be involved either way. So, but it's a little easier project.
But it's more ideal, but it's not necessarily out of the realm for this grant to be used for relocation? Or is it only for building above grade over?
So it's a little tricky because what they're saying is they want to move forward writing the grant for the grade separation. What I'm saying is we're going to go ahead and pursue what we need to get everything together so that even if we somewhere in the future are able to prove that one is better than the other for the overall benefit of the city, then maybe somebody will listen at that time and we can make that switch and make it happen. But if not, we still want to get the grade separation.
I haven't read the RFP solicitation announcement, but I have some experience in grants and contracts. So typically when you write a grant within a collaboration with another group, so if we went with a bypass, the funding agency would like to see the buy-in from that, have a letter of support from that area, and this grant is due September 23rd. So it's very unlikely that we would be able to have those to submit, and then providing that documentation and justifying to the agency that when it is awarded, if it is awarded, that those other places are going to follow through is a little bit of a gray area. So when you put all of your eggs in one bucket, like Wisconsin Rapids will do this, it's much more easy to see for your funding organizations.
I'm in support of this, of moving forward with this grant application. I've reviewed it pretty thoroughly.
Is that all?
That's all I have.
Okay. Now, if we move forward with the grant application, are we on the hook for the match of the project?
If we move forward with the grant application, we're on the hook for the 33 for the grant application. But unless we receive the award of 40 million, well, it would be 32 because rough numbers, we would owe 8 to make the project happen. And then we would have to decide how we're going to take care of that $8 million.
So if we're awarded the grant, we have to fork over 8 million no matter what. We can't back out.
You should be able to back out. If you're offered an award, you can choose not to accept it.
Okay. I hope that's the case. I lived on the west side the majority of my life, and trains we're always a part of it. They're less frequent than they used to be with the mill shuttering, but I have a, I don't know if it's 33,000, right? Which could pay off big. But even if we're granted it, we still have to pay the 8 for it to happen. And it's a big chunk of money. And when I look across the city and I see, 8th Street needs work and we have all this other infrastructure that needs work, I have a hard time going forward with an application for something that might cost us 8 million to even go down the road of getting that project done. We've thrown money at this issue recently, within the past couple years. We funded a rail detection system that there was cameras out, and I think we were in the hundreds of thousands for that, and I can't even find anywhere of anything that came from it. I was hoping Joe would be here today so I could ask him, but those of us who have been here for a bit, that we all chose to go that route, and instead of doing an overpass or some of the more expensive options, and I don't see that we've gotten any results from it. So I'm concerned that we keep throwing money at a problem that we really don't solve. And in the best case scenario with this, we have to pay 8 million or bond for 8 million to get the project done. And at this point, I don't know if this is the project we put our eggs in when there's other stuff going on. So I guess that's kind of where I'm at with it. I mean, we could spend the 33, but then at the end of the day, even if we're awarded, we got to come up with 8, and if we don't win, we're out 33,000 anyways.
Oh, good.
So I think that this opportunity helps us solve a variety of problems. So I brought up the train crossings and what happened with that study with the Public Works Committee. And the total estimated budget to make our train crossings quiet was between 3 million and 7 million per each stretch of road. So that 8 million to me is offset by this would also help with the quiet train zones. We didn't get to discuss it today at Human Resources, but it also could potentially help our restricted staff with the fire department servicing both sides of the city because they wouldn't be restricted to one side and held over there. So while we could fork out 8 million if we're awarded, I think that that number is offset by the other things that we would take on if we didn't do it. But those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with Maddie. We've talked about the rails since I've been an alder, and I've obviously on the west side. And my take has always been, whenever these big numbers come up, I've always said, the minute someone gets stuck in an ambulance and can't get through a train, then we're going to fork out the money to fix it. And I've always thought that, and I continue to think that. And yes, I agree on the sound things. Last night we had grandchildren duty at we had a sleepover last night, and at 4 a.m. the whistles were so loud for like 10 solid minutes where I live, and that's just an area. So I represent the west side, and I think it'd be a huge benefit for the west side. I understand we have a lot of other needs, but I'm in support of this. And I do agree that it would alleviate some issues with the fire department and being able to utilize both stations more effectively.
Being a former member of the Wisconsin Rapids Fire Department and have sat in the back of a fire engine watching a house on the other side of the tracks burn as we could not get there because of a train. I strongly feel that we have to do something with this set of tracks in town. It's been a problem for many, many years. My only concern is that you talk about the sound, we're only eliminating one crossing. and there's still 3 of them within a mile stretch of each other. So I don't think we will eliminate the sound. You'll still have plenty of crossing. You'll also have the same set of tracks delays traffic to Rams Middle School, where there's often my own kids have been late to school because of that same set of tracks. We don't eliminate that either, and I just don't want to see. I think it's great, worth pursuing, and it's probably, I'm all about pursuing the grant funding, but I'm only concerned that we would spend $8 million for just one single crossing, when we could maybe spend that $8 million to move those tracks entirely and eliminate the sound, eliminate students late to school, free up all of those crossings that make it easier for emergency vehicles and commercial traffic.
I agree with that 100%, and I'll do what I can too, and we'll have some decisions to make in the future. Hopefully, we can make that happen. The other side to the money is, according to Joe, the last time we had this conversation, like the in-depth when everything was almost together and it was voted down by the council in 2002, to make it happen, it was actually a $10 million project at that time. I think that was the full amount of the project. So as of right now, it's $2 million under what it was 20 years ago, and it's only going up from here. And I guess we just don't know where the grants are going to be, if they're going to stick around or if they'll be gone in a couple of years. So I think it's a window of opportunity. I was excited to see it, and if you guys want me to, I'll keep, busting tail to make it happen.
Okay, so committee, what are your wishes?
I'll make a motion to pursue applying for the grant for $33,000.
I'll second.
Motion by Veneman, second by Palmquist. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? It's me, no. Motion passes 2-1. Item 6 is discuss and consider the disallowance of a claim from Jane Przaki regarding alleged trespass and other alleged violation of rights. See attached recommendation for disallowance and copy of the claim. Everybody get a chance to look at that? If not, do it now, please. Okay, so I'll just go over quick. This is from a letter from Attorney Lowndes. He recommends that we follow our standard operating procedure regarding disallowing this claim, and Ms. Przaki a notice of disallowance within 120 days. So I will make a motion to disallow the claim.
Second.
Motion by Katnoff, second by Palmquist. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Item 7 is audit of the bills. I'm looking at my email for the check numbers if someone beats me to it.
Um,
Go ahead.
Yeah, it'd be check number 22,360 to 22,764.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Can you state the check numbers.
Can you read them again? I'm sorry.
22,360 to 22,764.
For check number 22,360 through 22,764.
764.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What was, Tim, what's the total that,
Oh, that's right.
of the payment?
Those checks total $2,496,776.12.
I'll second Mr. Veneman's motion. So motion by Veneman, second by Catnaw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item 8 is set next meeting date. The first Tuesday in September is the 3rd. The day after Labor Day. Probably the first day back to school, too. Does anybody have a problem with that, or?
I actually have a conflict with that. I'll be in the air that day.
Okay, Mr. Veneman has conflict. What about the following Tuesday, which would be the 10th?
That's fine.
That works for me as well. We'll have to get in touch with Mr. Delaney. But at this time, the Finance and Property Committee meeting will be scheduled for September 10th at 5 p.m. Item 9, in open session, the committee may vote to go into closed session under section 19.85, para 1, para E of the Wisconsin statutes, which reads deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. In closed session, the committee will consider proposals for the website redesign and hosting and website maintenance. I'll make a motion to move into closed session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Stop.
To refer considering the
Yeah.
proposals for website redesign, hosting, and website maintenance services to the Common Council meeting.
Second.
Motion by Catnaw, second by Veneman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Item 11, discuss and consider approving a resolution approving a website redesign and hosting and website maintenance services and a possible C-Click Fix application with initial costs funded by franchise and video service provider fees. See proposed resolution. Item 9.
Right, that was the open session, right? Or 11, I mean,
Yeah. We return to open sessions, item 10. Yeah.
right, and then the motion you just made was to basically push this off to the council meeting, which would be 11, right?
That would go under 11, because you're not doing anything with the resolution at the moment.
Okay, why are they listed separately as C-Click Fix and website?
Well,
Because it feels like it's two different items.
no, in closed session, you consider proposal for website design, hosting, website maintenance, okay? And then, and whatever, any add-ons, and then specifically, if you were going to return to open session, and you actually were going to consider that and pick a vendor, and then one of the parts of that vendor was C-Click Fix, so then that would have been included in your motion. And then also you would have determined where to fund it, and that would have been the franchise fees. So your ordinance requires that if you're going to take money from the franchise and video service provider fees, that has to be via resolution. So that's why there's a resolution. But it's my understanding you're not choosing a vendor, you're not yet. You haven't decided on C-Click Fix, so this resolution will basically be going to the council then And once you get the new quotes, you might fill in the blanks on this resolution and then pass it at council.
Okay, I guess I still don't understand how a proposal for a website and See-Click Fix are together and wouldn't be taken up separately.
Well, they could be.
They're listed separately. I guess that's my confusion. They're two
Okay,
different
where are
items.
they
and-
listed separately?
Where are they listed separately?
11 contains website design, hosting, maintenance services, See-Click Fix. 11 is the action item. I mean,
Okay,
you'll decide
Yeah.
whether you want to do that or not, and that'll be in the resolution then, right?
yeah, I just,
Does that make sense?
So, yeah,
it does. I mean,
sorry.
they're
Yeah,
both on, we just talked about one thing and then they got thrown together with another. But yeah, that makes sense.
okay.
So on to item 12. In open session, the committee may vote to go into closed session under section 19.85, para 1, para E of the Wisconsin statutes, which reads deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. In closed session, the committee will discuss an update on the sale and development of the property in the downtown Triangle area, and will discuss negotiation and strategy regarding the selling of the property and the terms of a developmental agreement for a downtown development.
Motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Motion by Veneman, second by Palmquist. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.